Amazing. Welcome to the show, Dr. Ellis. So great to meet you. I do believe we probably know each other. I mean, your name, I've heard of your name,
Hmm.
but I have met you as well. We met in Vegas.
Yeah. Well, what I found out is this is the world is much smaller than we can possibly believe. We
Yes,
keep doing these things and going in circles. Eventually, we just run across people,
right.
So we haven't met officially. Then it's just a matter of time.
It's a matter of time. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'm so excited to get to dive into your story. I know you've got a very powerful story. I've heard your story in Vegas when you were part of the panelists at the Speak Off. What a powerful story. And this is what drew me to you to have you come on the show because, Dr. Ellis, the imprint that left in my mind was the prop you held in your hand, the
Bullet.
bullet. And I just want everyone to listen to your story. But before we bring you on, Dr. Ellis, I want to introduce welcome to everyone to Ask the Experts podcast. Welcome to another episode, to another powerful episode that is going to be. And I want each and every one to hear Dr. Ellis's story. It is so powerful. I was fortunate to hear him in Vegas this past March.
Mm.
And we want to always bring you valuable content and amazing guests. So, welcome to another episode of Ask the Experts podcast. Dr. Ellis is the number one breakthrough strategist. He is a global thought leader, a master speaker, a coach, and trainer. Dr. Ellis is the author of GPS My Success. This is a powerful guide for those who are ready to navigate to unlock their highest potential. Dr. Ellis, he works with individuals and organizations to unlock clarity, purpose, and an unstoppable, yes, an unstoppable momentum. Dr. Ellis, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you on Ask the Expert.
It's a pleasure, a privilege, and an honor to be here as well.
Amazing. So, Dr. Ellis, why don't we, as I stated, I heard you in Vegas,
Mm.
your story, and it was a very powerful story. And I want to start off with your story. I want the audience to get to know you, to get to know about your story. So if you can share it, then we'll talk about your book and the other questions that I have.
Yeah. So a little. Okay, I got you. So off the bat, I'll say that I believe that one of the most important things you could possibly do is discover your purpose, and I think that is the very thing or the very reason why God put you here, right? Many of us are blessed to be able to walk in our purposes because our purposes not only affect us but affects everyone that comes into contact with us. There's a select few out there that haven't taken any time to figure out their purpose, and then there's the middle ground. There's the group that knows their purpose, but they lack the courage and the mental fortitude to walk that thing out because there's going to be a lot of changes. And so for me personally, I went through all three of those stages, but everything shifted for me back in 2017. See, prior to that date, I heard this powerful quote by Miles Monroe, and he said the wealthiest place in the world is the cemetery. Because when people die, they pack this suitcase full of goals, dreams, hopes, ambition, things they're supposed to give birth to when they had time. But unfortunately, their time runs out. And once it gets buried, it never comes back up again. Now, like I said before, I didn't really care about that when I heard it the first time back when I was 19 years old. I did in 2017 because that was the year my life got flipped upside down because of a simple 9 millimeter bullet. I got into an altercation where an individual pulled out a gun, and before I know it, the gun goes off, and that gun struck me directly in my right kneecap. And so by the time they admitted me into the ER, one of the things the nurses dropped directly in my lap, she said, "Hey, I don't know the extent of the damage to your knee right now. However, we're going to run you back an x-ray to get a better look. But there may be a chance we may have to amputate you from the knee down." Right? And in that moment, I'm sitting there at a high level of distress because I didn't think by 2 o'clock in the afternoon they would be talking about possibly removing the bottom half of my leg. And so as I'm sitting in that ER trying to think up anything that I can use to hang on to and grasp onto, because I got family and friends on their way to comfort me, give me words of encouragement, but it's a little bit of time between them leaving where they're at and making it to where I am in the hospital. I'm going through my mind for every piece of wisdom and advice I've ever heard from every parent, every teacher, every religious institute. And I come across something my mother had drilled in me from childhood, which is, as a man thinketh, so he is.
Mhm.
As a man thinketh, so he is. As a man thinketh, so he is, which means your thoughts over time will govern your results. So I begin to speak out loud. I'm going to keep my leg. 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 They run me in the x-ray. They bring me back out. And they say, yeah, we got great news. You are definitely going to keep your leg. It seems that your bone was stronger than the bullet. So there's some fractures. We're going to have to put some screws in your leg to stabilize it, right? You're going to go through physical therapy for about 6 to 9 months, but you're definitely going to be able to keep your leg and learn how to walk all over again. Now, believe it or not, that wasn't the pivotal moment in the story. The pivotal moment for me, and this, I didn't get a chance to share this with you guys because we only had 2 minutes to talk on that stage.
Right.
The
Yes.
pivotal part was waiting on them to transport me from the ER to my own room. Because with hospital care in the US, don't get me wrong, I love our hospital systems, but the speed,
Right.
the
Yeah.
efficiency of how they give you your own room, you may be in that ER for a little bit of time, right? So
Right.
they have me on medication so I can't feel any pain. And I'm looking down at the hole in my leg thinking this is going to be a cool battle story sometime. I could tell people I got shot and lived. And as I'm sitting there, there's a curtain separating me from the other patient. So I can't see what's going on over there, but I can hear everything. And as I'm sitting there, I eavesdrop and hear the nurses talk about how this man was 60 years old. He was working on his roof, fell off the ladder, landed the wrong way. He's not going to make it. They're doing everything they can to get his last of kin there to say their final goodbyes. And so as I'm sitting up inside my gurney, watching family members cross from my side of the room and disappear on that side of the room where I can't see anything, but I can hear everything, right? I'm hearing them talk about how they're going to miss each other and how much they love each other and all the arguments we had, whether I was right or you were wrong and I was right. It doesn't make a difference because in a few minutes, you're not going to be here with us anymore. And as I'm listening to that conversation, forgetting about what happened to me earlier that day, I heard the voice of God firmly in my heart. What if that man pulled that trigger a second time? What are the things that you've been commissioned and designed to do that's not going to get done because you keep thinking you got all the time in the world? What I told the audience on that 10X growth stage is the same thing I'm telling your listening audience right now. Believe it or not, my story and my message is not actually about me getting shot. It's about the fact that the cemetery reigns undefeated year after year because most of us walk around with this belief that we got all the time in the world. And
Right.
tomorrow has never been promised.
Yes.
On that stage, I said, I think it is un-American for you to discover your purpose and choose not to walk in it because it's always a choice. So I
Mm.
think it's time that we rob the graveyard of its greatness. Let's bankrupt the national GDP of the cemetery because what God placed inside of you, it was never designed to get buried. And that was the cusp of the message, to live your best life, but to live full and die completely empty. You're not supposed to bring a suitcase with anything because you're supposed to leave it all here.
Dr. Ellis, wow, wow, very powerful indeed. The second time I heard you, the first time, very powerful. And ladies and gentlemen, if this story just now, what you heard is not powerful, but it has a lot of meaning, what is your purpose? And
Mm,
if we don't know what is our purpose, I'm alluding to your story now. If we don't know what is our purpose, how
mhm,
can we live our full potential? Because
absolutely.
we know we know the abilities and the capabilities we have to do so much, the potential that we have. Your book, GPS My Success,
Mhm,
if you don't know how to unlock your full potential in life,
yeah,
you won't get to your destination. And I love that so much. To
mhm,
know your destination, it's in those moments, though, Dr. Ellis, that we don't know how life happens. We don't know in those moments as to, what is happening. But in order to do that, how can we even get to our success? So can you elaborate more on that, on your book?
Yeah. So with me originally, and I use myself as the blueprint for this, right?
Uh-huh.
So with me originally, the way I kind of knew that I wasn't walking in purpose, I walked around with a sense of accomplishment, but lack of fulfillment. I'm gonna say that again because somebody didn't catch that. I walked around with a lot of accomplishments, but a lack of fulfillment because I was knocking all these things out. I was achieving all these things and hitting all these benchmarks of success. But then it was like, I still feel like there's an empty spot that I can't fill up with these different things. And what I came to realize is there's a piece of you that will only feel complete and whole when you figure out the very thing you've been put here to do.
Wow.
Right.
Hmm.
And so that's where the journey started off at. And so some of the things that I had to figure out is number one, who am I? Because until you know who you are and whose you are, it's very hard to put yourself into the right situation or circumstance that can create that positive win. I say a lot of people are spending 40 hours a week with a mismanaged mindset because a lot of us just jump into occupations and we don't think about whether or not this occupation is in alignment with our calling and our purpose.
Right.
We'll chase a paycheck and still feel unfulfilled,
Hmm.
right? Not realizing the fulfillment comes from shifting into what it is you were designed to do, not what
Right.
you're here deciding to settle to do. And a lot of people settle at jobs because it has nothing to do with their passion or their purpose. So with me, it was figuring out number one, who am I? Unapologetically, the
Hmm.
authentic version of me, not the version that I think is politically correct that's going to make everybody happy, but who am I authentically at the core? Meaning I'm looking for my strengths, but more importantly, I'm looking for my weaknesses, right? The next thing I'm doing is I'm looking at my God given gifts, talents, and my expertise. Because I don't believe God is going to give you a calling or an assignment without giving you the basic resources to pull it off. In
Right.
other words, if I believe my calling is to speak all over the world, one of the prerequisites, God, is I gotta have the ability to communicate. I would be horrible at this job if I didn't know how to talk. Right?
Yeah.
Once you can figure out the gift and the talent, then you
Yeah.
have to spend time in the trenches mastering it. You got to master it. Bruce Lee says it takes 10,000 hours of practice to master a thing. Bruce
Mhm.
Lee also said that I don't fear the man that knows 10,000 different kicks. I fear the man that knows one kick that he's practiced 10,000 different times.
Yeah.
Because if he ever lands that particular kick in a fight, it's game over. He has mastered that technique. And so,
Mhm.
what happens with a lot of us, we'll discover our gift and talent or what we're the expert at, but we haven't spent time mastering that thing. So, when we met out at the 10X Growth Con, and that auditorium was crazy.
Oh
There was
yeah.
close to
So much
1,000 people
energy.
in the
Yeah.
auditorium,
A lot
right?
of energy. Yeah.
At that level of the game, you don't get on that stage without having mastering your gift and your talent.
Right.
Those that got a chance to get on a stage, they spent time and practice mastering that thing. So you got to master it, but then after that, you got to plant it in the right environment. Because whatever gift and talent God gave to you, once you master it, because that means you have discipline over top of it, that gift and talent still is not designed to operate everywhere.
Mhm.
My favorite animal is a cheetah. Cheetahs run at 70 mile per hour speed. They can do that on African terrain and soil. They can't run 70 miles per hour on Arctic ice and snow. So that means proximity to the right environment gives me power. I
Wow.
got to know what's best, what the best environment for my gift. If you look at Michael Phelps, he will go down in history as one of the greatest Olympic athletes for swimming. You don't see him out there on the track and field. You don't see him out there throwing the javelin or the discus throw. He's in the water because that is the environment for his gift, and that's why he dominates in it. You got to figure out what is my environment. And then last but not least, which is one of the most important ones, you got to be in control of the gift. Because the person that controls your gift will typically control not only your payday, but your lifestyle or the lack thereof if you're not careful. So I want to know that I'm in control of the gift so that way I can dictate what my gift is actually worth versus somebody telling me what it's actually worth. And that's how my journey got started. I applied those four things once I understood the direction I wanted to go in. And I was aware of the gift.
Exactly. Know your gifts, know your talents, and keep working at that because we can all master anything that
Yeah.
we want, speaking, anything. But you got to be disciplined. You got to be motivated enough and practice many, many hours and many times in front of the mirror. If you want to get into speaking, you want to be the best in the world. My next question,
Sure.
A lot of people want to be the best in the world,
Mhm.
right? In your opinion, what makes an individual number one in the world, or what makes an individual number one in what they do?
Mm. So when it comes to the topic of number one, best in the world, I don't think that any of the greats that out there that do it, I don't think they look at themselves as the best in the world.
Mhm.
Here's my problem. And I see this happen in the mentor mentee game a lot, where you have your mentor, you have your mentee, and your mentee is studying to catch up to you, right?
Right.
And if
Uh-huh.
they think about possibly surpassing you, which they do, they're number one. But where's there to go from there,
Right. Hmm.
right? I,
Hmm.
I look at a life of longevity and a life of legacy, which means that, and I got this also from my mentor Les Brown. There's no such thing as a perfect speech. In other words, the speech that I haven't given yet, that will hopefully be my next best speech. But I will never look at my work as something that's perfected because there's always room for growth.
Right.
The problem
Yes.
happens with a lot of us, we think we hit mastery and perfection and we shut down the ability to evolve. The one thing I have learned from the dinosaurs is if you don't evolve, you'll eventually die. That happens not only with our finances, that happens with our education, that happens with our gifts and talents. As the world begins to shift, I have to figure out how do I evolve myself and everything connected with me so I can
Mm.
elevate on the new platform. With the current shift we're in right now, with the administration in this country and with the rules and the laws and the things that are changing, there are a lot of people that have not prepared themselves to evolve and transform to fit the new shift. And those are some of the ones that will be left behind in this transition.
And transition also, as we talk about, changes that are happening, changes globally,
Mhm.
economically, and also changes AI.
Sure.
Artificial intelligence is here to stay. If we
Mm,
don't adapt to using AI in our businesses, we are going to get left behind. And so that's
yes.
one thing we just don't want to do. It doesn't matter how fearful you might be. Most people are thinking, well, is AI going to replace me? Well, in certain businesses, yes, you will be
Yeah.
replaced, but you got
Mm,
to adapt to it.
that's right.
You got to
I,
learn everything. Yes,
I call it the double A. I say you got to adapt and you got to adopt. You got to
adapt.
adapt to what's coming and you have to adopt it because there's no way around it, right?
Right.
And,
Yeah.
and some of these jumps to because we've been hit with so much over the last decade alone. Like if you
Mhm.
just think about how the world shifted after COVID shut everything down, there's a lot of things we do now that we weren't doing before COVID. And it
Yes,
made life simpler so we're not going backwards. So there's a lot of industries that find themselves in trouble because they can't go back to business as normal, but they didn't prepare to shift. They didn't prepare to shift.
exactly. Adapt and adopt. Yes, I love that. So, Dr. Ellis, mentally, when people say that they want to be the best in the world, they want to, they want to achieve so much in life.
Sure.
Mentally, what do people need to do in order to
Mm,
strive to
okay.
be the best and achieve the success that they want? Mentally, what
Yeah.
do they have to do?
Yeah. So I think there are three things I would focus on, right? And it's something I've taught around the world called the VSM matrix, the VSM matrix. And this trifecta really focuses on three things. Number one is setting the right vision.
Hmm.
One of my favorite scriptures in the book of life says, write the vision and make it plain. When I wrote my best-selling book, GPS My Success, it was based on the concept of vision. A GPS is a vision machine. Where in the world do you want to go? So the very first thing to being the best, I think it starts with vision. And the more specific the vision, the greater the chance you rise to the top. In other words, as a speaker, I can speak about a multitude of topics, but there's only a few select topics that's going to take me to the top, right? So I want to be specific about what, not what, but where I'm trying to get to. Then once I understand the vision, the next thing is what's the strategy? Meaning I could be out here all day long twiddling my thumbs, or is there a specific set of action steps that I'm going to take day in and day out to get a positive result? Or for the person that may not be picking up what I'm putting down in the words of Myron Golden, if you've ever played football or watched football, when the offensive team goes into the huddle between downs, they're not there just shooting the breeze, talking about anything and everything. They are trying to figure out what strategy do we want to run when we come out of this huddle that's going to get us a minimum of 10 yards down the field. Why 10? Because 10 is all we need to get a first down to keep the ball in play. 10 yards at a time, 10 yards at a time. So what is my strategy that's connected to my vision that's going to take me up the field 10 yards at a time? So often we think about the football games where they're sensationalized because there's 0 seconds on the clock. There's no timeouts. The team you want to win is down by like 5 points or something goofy. And everybody goes deep. The quarterback goes back and throws the long bomb downfield. And everybody's running with their hands open. And then they catch it with no time on the clock and everybody goes crazy. Right? Those are the plays that we call miracles. But in the aspect of what we're talking about here, right, for strategy, you don't have to throw long bombs to get to the end zone. 10 yards at a time. What am I doing every day or every week that moves me just a minimum of 10 yards closer to my finish line, to my end zone, right? And then once I understand the strategy and I put it on repeat, then I want to find the mentor.
Right.
That's the person who's been there, done that. They understand what I'm trying to do. They could possibly show me shortcuts to get me there quicker and faster. And most importantly, I will learn from their challenges, their setbacks, their failures, their defeats, because I'm going to walk on the same line as you. I'm going to come to the same hurdles and challenges as you. And I don't want to be stuck there for 5 years if your accumulated wisdom can get me past that in 7 days. Right?
Absolutely. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Having a mentor, gets you to that shortcut.
Yeah.
Gets you to that shortcut, whatever you want to achieve, wherever you want to go, having a mentor will allow you to do that. And also what I love, you talked about, also what I read is not being perfect, but it's the progress to, having
Yes.
that 1%, being that 1% closer to your goals. And what I do in my life personally, I like to measure, where am I today and where do I want to go? And what are those steps that I am taking? So I'm measuring my yardstick every day that it's going to allow me to see, oh, wow, I've made this progress. So I used to be on the verge of being perfect, but there's no such thing as being perfect. But just put like if you're on social media, don't make it perfect. Just put it out there. Just put your content.
There you go. There you go. Yep. Figure it out as you go.
Figure
Right?
out, absolutely figure out as you go, because you always will. So as entrepreneurs, we will do that. Dr. Ellis, what are the markers that you can share with us that you have used in your business to build the sustainable brand? What would you
Okay.
say are those markers that you have used?
But okay, so I couldn't hear the first part. I think you asked me what are the markers?
Yeah, what are the markers? Yes.
Markers, okay, for building my brand. So number one, you want to first of all make sure your brand is something that's important, because a lot of people get out there and they push a product or a service that nobody's asked for. The number one rule of money to me is understanding that the reward for solving a problem is your payday. So if I know what my gift and my talent is, if I know what my expertise is, who around me is in need of what it is I have to offer? Like the biggest tragedy I saw, because I've been in corporate America and I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years. The biggest tragedy I saw was a lot of us growing up in school, we weren't really pushed toward entrepreneurship. And there's nothing wrong with working a job. Don't get me wrong, right? But I feel like I got more freedom with my life. I can chase my purpose of calling quicker and faster when I'm in the driver's seat, right? There's something to be said when you inside a car. If you're not behind the wheel with the keys, you're riding shotgun and you don't control where the vehicle goes. You're at the mercy of the driver. So your goal is always to have the keys and not be waiting on someone to let you out or take you here, take you there. You want to be in control of it. Yeah. So number one, I want to figure out how am I going to monetize what it is I do? Where's the money going to come from? Like who is in need of the solution that I can sell or I can offer, right? And then number two, have I spent time sharing what I do with the world to create a level of expertise? I'm amazed how many people I see on social media that have a gift, have a talent, have an expertise, have a product or service, but they don't pummel it into people's minds every day to remind them that this is what I do. People get on social media and I accuse them, I condemn you of being the best kept secret that no one has ever heard of. They'll spend more time showing other people's memes and motivation, and will spend no time telling the world what you do exceptionally well. So how can I utilize you to solve my problem and reward you with money if I don't know that you solved that problem? So the second thing is I would spend a lot of time putting as much content out as possible to remind the world what I'm known for and what I do exceptionally well. There is a John Maxwell leadership principle that I love, but I kind of took it and tweaked on it. John Maxwell says leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. Leadership is
Wow.
influence, nothing more, nothing less. Now, I had to remix a little bit. I said leadership, influence, opportunity. Because when you spend your time showing the world what you are good at, you become known as a leader at that. And that's what you want, right? The more people see you as a leader, the more influence you create over the world. People start to do things differently because they spent time listening to you or they took your thoughts into accountability, right? And the more influence you create, the more opportunities start to knock on your door and come to you. You're not supposed to be up every day out there chasing opportunities every 5 seconds. There should be a point in your growth where you are so well known that the opportunities are now chasing you down,
Right.
right? But
Yes.
that doesn't happen until I let the world know what I'm a leader at doing. If I'm a leader at motivation and breakthrough, that's my job to remind the world every single day. There shouldn't be a day I get up where I'm not reminding the world what I do, because the goal is for one person to take a look and say, okay, we have need of this person's products and services. The question is, how much do the products and services cost, and can we afford that? Right? But you got to show up every day.
Exactly. Being
Mhm.
consistent every day to, with our messaging.
Mhm.
Having a sustainable brand is one thing, and that's not the logo. Your brand is not just your logo.
Yeah.
Your brand is
It's,
more than, yeah.
it's your image, is everything that's connected to you. Like I see a lot of people put a lot of energy into the logo, but
Mhm.
I always felt like me as the person, the face of the brand, I can carry more weight than just showing you a symbol. Because in essence, I am the symbol, right? So the goal for anyone is to be, number one, to be likable. Like you want to be a likable brand. You want to have a likable be around mean mugging and looking at people ugly all day. You want to have a likable brand where people want to do business with. They want to listen to you. They want to buy into what it is you have to offer and sell. So I think number one is this likability factor, right?
Exactly, the likability. But
Mhm.
having a sustainable brand, a brand in itself, like you said, as an entrepreneur, as the leader of the brand,
Mhm.
you have to you got to show up. Yes, you got to show up. You got to be consistent with your messaging. You got to show up. You got to let people know what you do. But also I read that how brands or companies can fade. They can fade away only
Mhm.
because they were like we said, AI, they were afraid to go digital, to be in that space.
Yeah.
Companies did not want to try, and Amazon, these big companies just took over, and so the retail space is actually dying. But then some of the brands, and especially when you're starting out, you've got to be consistent. You've got to show. And yes, absolutely, I agree with you. You can't be invisible. You've got to be visible to the world so people know you, and that's how they're going to like and then trust your products as to what you're offering.
Mhm. I agree. I totally agree with that.
Exactly.
I'm a big fan of reinvention from time to time too. Sometimes I think you have to reinvent yourself to keep your brand a little edgy and a little bit fresh.
Exactly. Otherwise, yeah, you have to. Everything's constant. You got to be constantly evolving. And let's talk about leadership and leadership, what they stand for, and leadership, the feedbacks. And I want to talk more so about feedbacks. How important is feedback to an organization? So the feedbacks that we get from the leadership of the
Mhm.
organization to the team members, to peers or coaches, how
Mhm.
important is feedback that we receive, the input that
Sure.
we are getting? How
Mhm.
important is feedback, and what can we do so that we are improving the organization as a whole?
Sure. So I think that when it comes to growth, feedback is actually, I would say, the second most important thing. The first most
Okay,
important thing is action, because you
exactly.
can know you go in a different direction, take no action, have no results, right?
Uh-huh.
But feedback is the second part of that, because I can be taking action, right? But I can also be taking action in the wrong direction.
Right.
Right? So I want to make sure that my actions are in alignment with growth, and that's where feedback comes into place. I look at feedback like an autopsy report. TD Jakes, a few years back, when he released one of his best-selling books, he talked about why it was so important to have the autopsy before you bury the body. And the reason why this is so important, because we want to understand the exact reason why this thing died. We got to
Mhm.
know, so that way we can fight it in the future, or possibly prevent it from spreading. So you never want to say goodbye to something and go in a new direction without first doing an autopsy report to figure out what caused our slowdown, what caused things to die down. Otherwise, what happened is we'll end up dying down the road from the same thing that we could have figured out if we just got feedback and paid attention to what was necessary, right? So I think
Right.
that's the second thing that's valuable after action. But I think when it comes to organization, and this is going to be different across the spectrum, because I've talked to a lot of organizations, some big organizations, some smaller organizations, but given the employee the mindset that their opinion and their concepts, it counts. A lot of times the folks that are out there on the floor, they don't realize that, or they don't feel that their feedback will make a difference or change anything. We get these
Mhm.
orders for the day, we do this for 8 hours, we're done. So they don't believe. So the other thing is making the entire company, the entire team feel like their input is not only necessary, but it's there to make a decidable difference. People back stuff they believe in. It's the reason why people show up to vote every 4 years. They believe that their vote counts and they want their vote to count. So I think the same thing happens here. If you want necessary change and you want authentic answers,
Right.
give the team the belief, the understanding, the mindset that you're a part of this, right? And we're all here together. Absolutely.
Exactly. What would you say in those moments when, a leader, a supervisor, manager of the company, everyone's rallying around as to how you can improve culture? And I also think culture is important
Mhm.
to an organization, but the culture stems from the leadership, stems from the
Yes.
hierarchy, right? And so if we have a conducive organization, the leadership, how the leadership is run as a whole, how can they improve the culture? So I think culture also matters as to
Sure.
the employees. They're going to be more productive. If you're not productive, you may procrastinate. How important is culture mentally in an individual, given the work performance that, is very important to them, but how can they improve their tasks if they're not,
Mm.
so if they're not mentally in that right space, if they're not motivated to perform better?
Yeah, so I love that question, because this is taking me back to my corporate days where I managed teams. And one
Okay.
of the reasons why my teams absolutely outperformed every other team in the organization was because before I just jumped in the leadership role, I wanted to understand the culture of my team. It
Mm,
was not to change the culture of the team, because the culture of the team, as it was right there, was their most effective version of them, right? My job wasn't to change that. In other words, I'm sitting here holding this oak tree seed, right? And in order for this seed to transform into the only thing it's designed to be, this seed is only designed to turn into an oak tree, right? The
uh-huh.
transformation only takes place when it's planted in the right soil.
Right.
I can leave this seed on my desk for 10 years. It'll never turn into what it's designed to be. It only happens when I plant in the right soil. So as a
Right.
leader, my team, my squad, my staff, they're seed. And my job, in order to get the fruit out of them, I want to make sure I put them in the best environment possible that's going to produce maximum growth.
Right.
That's the leader's job, to set the temperature and the tone for that, right? And then
Mhm.
once that happens and you consistently water with praise and admiration and validation, and let them know that you support them, that you back them, instead of barking orders at them, be part of them, lead firmly, but be part of them, you'll see magnificent growth every single time. But it's always remembering this is seed. What soil is best to get the growth out that team?
Can you live without feedback? How important is feedback? And can people live without feedback?
Mhm.
And how would that affect an individual if
Yes.
they don't want to have the feedback, for example?
Yeah. So I think that if you are a leader, by default, you should already sign the dotted line for personal development and professional growth. Like that's a necessary. I don't know any leader that can be an effective leader that's not willing to grow over time. I've got 2 trees in my yard right now. One is healthy and alive with a bunch of branches and leaves, and the other one, the same height, is dead. It is dead. They're side by side. Now, during the wintertime, when all the leaves are off the tree, they both look like they're dead because they look similar. The only way I know this one is alive and this one is dead is this one is still growing, this one stopped growing. The leader that stops growing here is the same thing as that dead tree. You don't produce anything. And after a while, you become brittle and you're easy to break. And when I say break means when you put leadership under pressure, under the wrong situation and circumstances, you will see a break come through. And we've seen that play out literally a couple of times in this past year with people in leadership roles where they broke under the pressure because they stopped growing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to be the best leader, you have to always be in the mindset that I'm never done growing. I'm always
Right.
reading up on the craft of leadership. I'm always studying other better, brighter leaders because you become what you think about.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. That is so powerful, so true. Um, when it comes to our past,
Sure.
GPS input
Mm.
of your life that gets to your destination.
Yes.
In life, we have two paths, easy or hard. When life becomes hard, in those moments mentally, I mean, I like to be under pressure because when I'm under pressure, I know for me personally, I can do so much better. I can perform. I'm so much better as if
Mhm.
I'm not. Can
Okay.
you share with us the strategies to our viewers? If
Mhm.
you are choosing the two paths today,
Mhm.
what are the implications mentally that you are affirming to yourself?
Wow. Okay, so I'm gonna tackle this question, but I'm gonna
Okay.
tackle it because I'm an analogy guy. I love using analogies because I know the audience will get it no matter what happens. This
Yeah.
didn't go over there. And so I'm a self-proclaimed gym rat. I'm a workout fan. I'm in the gym at least 5 days out of the week, right? And what I noticed is if I want to get stronger to lift something very, very heavy, I have to put on muscle. So in order to do that, I can't go in the gym and try to bench press a 20-pound barbell and think I'm gonna put on some serious
Yeah.
muscle gain, right? It's too light. I
Right.
gotta lift something that's heavier than my comfortability. So
Yes.
I go to lift maybe 250 pounds on the rack, right? And I may be a little bit worried about getting crushed by the weight, but I can always find a strong guy in this gym and say, hey, brother, you mind come over here and spot me to help me lift this weight so I can manage this weight? And what I'm saying here, number one, is if you want to be great, you can't be great by going easy.
Mm.
If I want to put on muscle, I got to be willing mentally to say I'm willing to tackle lifting the heavier weight. And we live in a society that loves easy things, but that's why they don't have sustainable growth. So number one, I have to be mentally ready and tell myself I'm ready to lift heavy. It doesn't mean I got to do it on my own. So in case we're looking at the idea of me getting this big buff dude to spot me so I don't drop the weight on me when it gets too heavy, your accountability partner, because that's who that is, has to be somebody that wants to see you get bigger, wants to see you get stronger. For some of you, that's your significant other. For some of you, that's your family and your close friends. But you need to make sure that you're not trying to lift weight that's too heavy, that you're fearful of. Make sure you got someone on your team who is spotting you, holding you accountable in times of turmoil, hold you accountable in your best times and your worst times so you don't chicken out from the process. That's number one. Number two, after I lift heavy, number two, I got to eat the right food. If I lift heavy in the gym and I want to put on muscle, I can't eat junk food to do that. I can't go have cookies and Twinkies and zingers and put on muscle. I need protein, right? So that means I'm going to eat chicken breast and steak and fish, all the protein needed to put that muscle on. Now, what that means is if I want to be great, if I want to have lasting success, as kids who grew up, we heard you are what you eat in the physical sense, but in the mental sense. So, what am I consuming brain power wise? Who am I listening to? What books am I reading about the arena I want to dominate in? Because this is what I should be feeding this muscle so it grows stronger. That's number two. Then the last and final piece when I land the plane is all about rest. When I go to the gym and I lift heavy, Like I'm curling heavy. I don't put on muscle in real time. When I go to eat that steak, I don't put on muscle in real time. I put on muscle when I sleep because the body is repairing itself at rest. This is a lesson for somebody right now because you have to lift heavy in order to get what you want. It's going to be uncomfortable. You have to feed yourself the right things you need to sustain you. But there are moments, seasons, and cycles where you have to put stuff down and step into a period of rest because your growth comes when you're able to put everything down and internalize what journey you just gone through and what steps will actually take you to the next level. And for some of you out there, the reason why God has not blessed you with that thing you asked for is not because he's not going to do it. He's looking at you and saying, the blessing I'm trying to give to you, you're not strong enough to lift that. You're not strong enough. You can't deadlift this. You can't bench press this. It is so big and so heavy that you in your current form, you can't handle this. So I need you to get your faith into alignment and strengthen your faith muscle.
Mm,
The
wow.
stronger your faith, the bigger your desire. There was a moment in time where I had little faith, and so I was walking this planet saying my speaking fee was $500 for an hour, right? I had little faith, so I got little reward, little return. When I got big faith, I started saying my speaking fee is $20,000 an hour. And it was my faith that dictated what I actually received. But I couldn't get under the weight of $20,000 an hour until my mental muscles and my faith muscle was strong enough to lift it. I could lift the 500 easy. That 20,000 for an hour, that's a hard one to lift. Get your faith into alignment. Get into the gym. Start asking for things by faith and going after them. And as you progress on success, you'll get stronger and start asking for bigger things.
I love that. Very powerful. Love it. Affirming is one thing.
Sure.
Affirming to yourself what you want.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get stronger. I want to have successful business, but we can affirm all day long.
Sure.
Having a faith to go alongside as to what you're affirming, as to what you want, is also, but for individuals who are doing everything, they're affirming as to what the success they want, the GPS, how their life is determined or destined to be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How easy is that for most individuals? Because some people, for some, it may not be easy. How can they achieve what are the strategies? What do they need to do in
Mm-hmm.
order to have what they want, what you've just said, have your faith be aligned with your actions?
Yeah. So in the GPS mythology, there's only 5 things we're focused on. Number one, we're setting an address inside our life's GPS. Everybody here understands GPS technology. You know it only works when you know where you want to go. So that means you're responsible for putting the address inside the GPS of where you
Mhm.
want your life to take you to,
Right.
right? And
Mhm.
make no mistakes about it. If you don't put an address in the GPS, it still will take you somewhere. It's a destination called nowhere. You
Yeah.
won't do anything with your life. So you want to be clear, write your vision and make it plain. So that's number one. Number two, you want to move with clarity over confusion. A confused mind will always say no. So the more clear you are about what it is you want, where it is you want to be, how much you want to make, what it is you want to do in the time frame, the quicker and faster your subconscious mind starts to create a blueprint or a game plan to get you there. Like I'm amazed how many people don't realize this. The more clear you are about a goal, it comes quicker and faster. You start to spot opportunities around you that were in plain sight all this time, but because you weren't clear on what you wanted, how come I didn't see that before? It's always been there, right?
Right.
So the
Uh-huh.
more clear I am, the more I avoid confusion and slowdown. Number three, I want to be properly connected. And what that means is with GPS, technology is pretty simple. As long as I got a strong Wi-Fi on my GPS and it connects to that telephone pole, that telephone pole hits that satellite, that GPS will take me anywhere I want to go, right? And this works the same exact way here, which is if I'm using my GPS to get me to my finish line, who do I need to connect or tap into? That's going to be a powerful resource that's going to get me to my finish line quicker and faster. Meaning the education that I need to absorb, the coaches, the mentors, the friendships, the organizations, right? Even the mentors or the mentoring, because I think with some people, their lack of growth is not because they don't have mentors in their life, but they're also not mentoring other people. Some point in time, you got to pour out what you know into other people. You can't take it with you. That's the whole message of arriving at your graveside empty and leaving that suitcase behind. You got to be willing to pour it out. That's the law of tithing, right? But even with a GPS, it can always get caught up in what we call the dead zone. And the dead
Mhm.
zone is that space where you lose your signal. And so you're driving blind for 3 to 5 seconds because there's no connection. If you're not careful, you'll shoot right past your exit ramp, right? Because you lost the signal. So I challenge people to say who, what, and where are the dead zones in your life right now? Because for some
Wow.
people, under the sound of my voice, their dead zones are their families and their friends. Never have a word of encouragement. Never want to see you do big things.
Wow.
Will give you 10 reasons why you can't do it, but won't give you one reason why you can. Yeah, those types of folks, when I get around them, I lose my signal and I lose my way. So if I know where the dead zones are in my life, my job is to steer clear. So I want to keep a strong signal so I can stay focused, right? So we got the dead zones. And then number 4, we got to be willing to recalculate. No matter how many times I've used my GPS, if I make a wrong turn because I was distracted off in La La Land, or if I'm driving down the street and the road is blocked off, or it's traffic or an accident, the GPS doesn't say, let's call it quits and go back home. The GPS begins to recalculate and reroute other ways to get to the finish line. It may
Right.
cost me a little bit more time. It may cost me a little bit more gas, but you best believe if I follow the blueprint, if I follow the game plan, if I follow the road, if I follow the directions and instructions, I will get to my finish line. Most people lose because they're so hell bent on thinking there's only one way to get there. And they don't understand there's a multitude of ways to get to your finish line, but you have to be open to receive it, right? And
Right.
then last not least, you got to check the history log. If I were to ask you for your GPS right now and I go to the history log, it's going to tell me every address you went to since you owned that GPS. Unless you erase the history log, it's going to show me. And that tells me one key thing. Where your focus goes, your energy flows. So if you're focused on going to those destinations, that's where your energy is at. The big dilemma I see with a lot of people when it comes to their personal, their life GPS, if I look at the history log is full of addresses that belong to everybody else. The job's address is in there, family and friends address is in there, the church's address is in there, the homeowners association. Like you chasing all these people's things. Where's your addresses at? The goals and dreams God gave to you. I don't
Right.
see them in your GPS, which means you ain't been going there. You are guilty of cheating on your goals and dreams because you're chasing everybody else's agenda. And that's powerful. That is so powerful, right?
That is
So that's the
very
5-step methodology. Yeah, that's the 5 steps right there. But that history log is important.
that is very powerful. Wow. That is so amazing. Yeah, the GPS, absolutely. You've got to put the coordinates in order to
Yes.
go to a destination. If you don't put the coordinates in, it's just like, you're sailing on a ship, you're the captain of the ship. If you
Yeah.
don't punch in where the ship is going, it's going to hit the iceberg, perhaps like the Titanic. But
Mhm.
perhaps that's what happens if you don't put the coordinates in when you're driving. You don't put in the satellite as to where you're going, where's the destination. You're just going to go anywhere. So absolutely, just love this. Very powerful. Dr.
Mhm.
Karim, you help individuals and organizations to help unlock their highest potential.
Mhm.
Were there moments in your career that you've seen individuals who had the highest potential, but for
Mhm.
some reason they did not meet their potential? Have you seen that happen in your career? And how can, as viewers listening, how can they avoid? Or what mental state do they need to be in to achieve the potential that they have?
Yeah, so I love these questions, right? So there's 2 things I've seen. So I got to give it 2 ways, right?
Yes.
Number one, imposter syndrome stop people from personal greatness,
Wow. Uh-huh.
right? I'm gonna use a biblical story. I know we got people here from all types of faiths.
Yes.
I'm not trying to
Yes.
hurt nobody, but I love these stories,
Yeah,
right?
go ahead. Yes.
We see prior to the Hebrews walking into their promised land when they got freed from bondage from Pharaoh. The thing that stood between them and their promised land was they found out the promised land was full of giants and they were
Um,
fearful. 2 spies said, let's go. The other one said, no, right? And the thing that blew my mind the most is they were so fearful of the giants, but they never once asked themselves if rumors of them had made it to the giants' doorsteps and how the giants look at them.
wow.
What people
Uh-huh.
don't understand is from the journey from coming out of slavery all the way to the promised land, they were getting in battles against different tribes and wiping them out. They were wiping enemies out. We don't know if rumors got back to the Giants that there's this band of Hebrews coming and they taking out it. And in the Giants' eyes, they may have seen them as giants, right?
Mm-hmm.
Imposter syndrome stopped so many people. I was a victim of imposter syndrome because I would look at all the greats that I was around and say, do I have the moxie to be up here with these greats, to be able
Right.
to be on a stage with a Les Brown, right? Imposter syndrome is there to keep you from playing full out. So number one, I want to be clear about who I am and who I want to be clear about whose I am and who I am. Because until you see yourself as a giant, you'll never walk, talk, and act like a giant. I'll say that again. Until you see yourself as a giant, and I don't care what level of your journey that you at. I don't care if you just started yesterday. See yourself as a giant now, right?
Wow. Mm-hmm.
Your thoughts produce the result, and that's what is key. If you go into battle thinking I'm a mouse, I'm a mouse, I'm a mouse, that's what you're going to show up as. So to beat imposter syndrome, I have to get in control of this. That's number one. But the second thing came from my personal mentor, Mr. Les Brown. He said, don't let your character take you to a height. No, I'm sorry. He said, don't let your success take you to a height that your character can't sustain you. I'm going to say that
Wow.
again. Don't let your success take you to a height that your character can't sustain you. That the prisons are full of politicians and pro ball players that had all the talent in the world that rose them to the top, but it was the character that caused the mighty fall. Caught up in scandal and all types of things they shouldn't have done, and they deprived the world of what they gift and talent had the potential and the possibility to do, right? So I think that's the second thing is always maintain your character, and you sharpen your character based on who you choose to hang around.
Exactly. Well, you're the five people that you do hang around with, and those individuals that you hang around with is who you become.
Yep,
Is who
it's
you
Jim
become, and
Rome.
that
Jim Rome,
exactly,
absolutely.
exactly. The five people that you hang around with are the most powerful. So know as to who you are hanging around with that's going to infiltrate the positivity because there's just so much negativity that's just happening,
Mhm.
and people are just misusing as to what is happening around the world that really affects their mind, and as a result they're not able to focus in their in their jobs. So
That's
this
right.
is, yeah, so your final question, Dr. Ellis, and this has been such a powerful conversation. Wow, it's just absolutely just amazing. Your final question: what are the three life lessons that we can learn from of all the accomplishments that you've had thus far? What are the three life lessons that you can share with us?
Hmm. So the first life lesson would be um, figure out your purpose as fast as you can. The first life lesson is figure out your purpose as fast as you can. The most valuable resource we have is not money. Money is an idea. You are one idea away from all the money you ever want or desire, but you got to give birth to it up here, which means I have to get mentally knocked up or mentally pregnant with the right idea, give birth to it, and then see that thing to fruition. Right. One of the wealthy millionaires that I had talked about on stage many years ago was the creator of the pet rock. And I remember asking my parents for a pet rock, and my father said, you think I'm gonna take you to the toy store and spend $15 on a rock? You got all the rocks you want in the backyard. You can have a rock family reunion. You better get out there and pick some of those rocks, right? But this man took a rock, put it inside a cardboard crate, put some hay inside of it, and some twine to create a leash on a rock, and called it the pet rock. It was the Beanie Baby craze before the Beanie Babies came out.
Oh,
So
wow.
all it was an idea. That's
Right.
all the money you need. You got to give birth to it. Stop taking your best ideas and giving it to other people so they can get rich and start putting faith behind your best idea that God gave to you. So that would be the first thing right there, right? Number two is I'm gonna say mentorship. I'm gonna say mentorship because if we're everything we're doing is based on time. On my last day when I get before God, I'm in because I've already accepted everything, so I'm in, right? But there will be judgment on what I did and what I didn't do when I was here.
Wow.
Maybe
Mhm.
I gave you a gift, I gave you a talent. What did you do with it? What
Yes.
was the rate of return? In the world of investing, when you invest in something, you want a greater rate of return than what your investment was that went into it. Non-performing assets get dropped. So if I have a gift and a talent and I understand the direction of my purpose and calling, there's now accountability and responsibility to, did you use this gift to the best of your ability, or did you half-ass it, or did you ignore it?
Right.
So number two, I want to be clear about that because I want to be a good steward of what I have, right? And then number three, I'm going to say live a life that lacks regrets. I'm going to say live a life that lacks regrets. I think that most of us are afraid to be our authentic selves because of the conditions and the conditioning that we've been subjugated to all our lives. One of my favorite books from Napoleon Hill is called Interview with the Devil. And in this particular book, he has somehow subdued Satan, right? And Satan is forced to give all truths. He cannot lie at whatever Napoleon asks him, and this is in a dream. And he starts to ask him certain things. And Satan says the reason why this planet is so amok is because 90% of what you think is fact is also is actually somebody's well-placed belief, opinion. Some of it is lie. But since we receive it from figures around us that we believe have authoritative standpoint, parental figures, teachers, parents, we just receive without question, and it becomes the formation of our new truth. Mm-hmm. So if I grew up in a household where I was taught that being rich is evil, stay humble, live below your means, you don't need all these trappings of success, money is the root of all evil, which so many people mess up. That's not the case. It's the love of money. If I love money more than the God that gives me the ability to get it, I have idolized it, right? Yes. But my truth comes from the environment that my seed was planted in. And if I don't like my results, oftentimes I'm recalled to go back and do something painful, which is go to the place the seed was buried, remove the seed, and then replant it in a clear environment where I can learn it all for myself. A lot of times we think we know everything we need to know. We haven't even scratched the surface of it because a lot of our thoughts are tainted based on the environment. When I decided to jump into entrepreneurship, I love my 9-to-5 friends and buddies, but I had to take my seed and plant it over here around other entrepreneurs because that soil was tainted for what it is I was trying to do. They couldn't see the sacrifice, but they also couldn't understand what the success was going to look like. It was nothing against them, but it was all on me to say I deserve better for myself. So that means it's up to me to question the norms. And we can do that. We can look at stuff that doesn't make sense to us and challenge it. That's the good thing about being alive. You can challenge what you don't like, right? If you want to develop the 2.0 version of yourself. So that would be my third thing.
Absolutely. So powerful. This has been such an amazing conversation, a very powerful conversation. So glad to have you on the podcast today, Dr. Ellis. And thank you so much to each and every one of you who have tuned in on the show today. Dr. Ellis, how can we find you? Where can we connect with you?
Well, I'm glad you asked. So at this point in time, I am literally all over social media. Especially after that contest, I'm viral at this point in time. I mean, I was always kind of...
I'm sure you must be.
One site has over 2 million views on that 2-minute talk.
Amazing.
So it's going... Yeah, but to find me, you can go to my website at www.KarimEllis.com, KarimEllis.com. I'm on every social media platform from LinkedIn to Instagram to TikTok. So if you do a Google search, you'll find me there. I'm also on YouTube under Karim Ray Ellis. So you can find me everywhere. The one thing I would love to do though, is I would love to bless your listeners and your viewers with the free gift just for them giving us the most valuable resource in the world, which is their time. They gave their time to watch this today, so I love to honor them. So if you are following me on Instagram, and if you go over to Instagram and say that you heard me on this podcast today, and I'm only going to give you 72 hours. 72. Don't come to me. It's hour 74, 75. 72 hours is the cutoff. Go to me on Instagram, follow me, send me a DM saying you heard this powerful podcast, and my team will give you a free digital copy of my best-selling book, GPS My Success, which is what we just talked about. But you only get 72 hours. After 72, you got to go to Amazon and buy it for $20.
Exactly. Amazing. Well, we'll put it in the show notes, but your book and the links, or all your links. Sure. So thank you so much to each and every one. You've just heard, connect with Dr. Ellis on Instagram and all of his social media. I'd be more than happy to connect with you. I get his book, GPS My Success. And we want to thank each and every one for tuning in and week out. We value you. Without you, the viewers, there would be no show. So we want to make sure that we always provide valuable content, have amazing guests on. So stay tuned for the next episode of Ask the Experts. And in the meantime, be challenge yourself. Life is all about challenging. Life is all about the growth that you are having today. Seek a mentor and really be on the goals, have the vision that you have in life so that you are always achieving your highest potential. Thank you so much, each and every one. And we will see you on the next episode of Ask the Experts. Bye for now. Thank you so much, Dr. Ellis. That's been so amazing.